So, gents, here we are. Less than a week away.
Less than a week.
Yeah, before we sort of, dust off the classics a little bit and put our version of Othello out there, and it's been playing quite a bit.
Yep.
I don't think I'm necessarily interested in talking about other plays. We'll just look at it from our perspective.
For sure.
Definitely we'll look at it through a perspective of a black man. I am particularly interested in letting folks know that the reason why we're doing it is because whenever I choose a play, I tend to choose a play based on what I think is going on in the world. And I think, without question, there is a sense, at least from my perspective, one of erasure, regardless of what vertical we're talking about, whether it's educational, whether it's financial, whether it's political, or otherwise. I think we can sort of list a number of things. I personally believe that there is an effort to sort of squash out our voices. Yep. Now, I will say, I think it's happened before. And I think this is a perfect period and a perfect time to be able to examine, what folks did in the past to address those things, some of the choices that they made. Maybe we can make some different choices. But I'm always interested in looking at it through an artistic perspective. I was really, really motivated to see the version that Carl has put together after listening to this.
I think what I'm interested in Othello is the more I read the text and grapple with it, especially as a black man, it's something that W.E.B. Du Bois talks about, this duality in being black, of feeling this imposed pressure to succeed in a world that is often other and different. And I think that those scars that Othello carries is something I'm deeply interested in investigating. Othello's life, as the text tells us, has several scars. Scars from war, scars from being sold into slavery, and then I'm also interested in this other psychological scarring. So those are the things that I'm really, really interested in exploring and grappling with and revealing to an audience. I think those type of questions, especially in today's climate, need a thorough investigation, unfortunately. With stories of erasure, stories of people telling us that, that wasn't as bad and this world doesn't exist anymore, I think are very pertinent in Othello's psyche. And I'm deeply interested in exploring that.
So when you think about that two-ness, Carl, what was so interesting about it, having read, I'll give you the quote right off of it. Du Bois says, "One never feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body, whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder." How does, when you see Othello, when you see the work that you're doing, how is that embodied? You talked about it in the quote just before, but how is that embodied in what you're doing?
Yeah, that was the big question when Ty and I started talking about it. I was like, Othello. And that was my way in. And the more I read about it, and the more I sympathized and empathized with Othello's trajectory in it. To rise to the highest of heights in a foreign land, right? To get to the meritocracy that is the military. Because that was always the thing about the military, right? No matter what color you are, if you are capable and you can show the leadership and this, you move up. And so for Othello to get there in a foreign land, I was like, that's amazing. And I couldn't help but think about what's going on in the world now.
Yep. I mean, even in the past, right? When black folks joined the military, well over 100 years ago, what were we trying to do? Assert ourselves as contributing citizens in society. But I would also argue we felt like we were foreign, even in our own land, right? And what are you, 7 generations?
7 generation Floridian.
Floridian.
Yeah. And families, much like you, have been served in the military.
Amen.
So from all the way from World War II to Korea to Vietnam, there have been my ancestors who are fighting for this, and yet we still feel
the
foreign.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting for me because I've seen the play, when I've read the play, and then seeing some of the rehearsals, is you're working to create a 360 human in Othello.
Amen.
It's not a person who's just manipulated or going through mania, but it's the product of the compression of the world, and you see it through every relationship. Like, how did you come to that? Like, it seems so, like, right on this, like, it seems right when I see it, and I go, wait, why isn't this produced like this more often, where we're seeing a full, like, nuanced human on stage?
Yep.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. What I'm interested too is the moments that they talk about his epileptic seizures.
Yeah.
And what was that?
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, what is that? And we talk about it a little bit, but I was like, man, there was so much trauma that has bubbled to the top.
Yeah.
And it reminds me right now, Joe Turner is Come and Gone is playing on Broadway. Mm-hmm. And if we think about it, Harold Loomis has a very similar moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so when you look at some of Wilson's work, Citizen Barlow has a moment where the ancestors and everything are just bubbling up in you.
Yep.
And for me, that was a combination of the trauma, sold into slavery,
Yeah.
the horrific battlefields he must have seen, the horrific treatment an other often receives, and then on top of it, to be gaslit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that is something that no matter how composed one is and how you've managed to suppress that to get to the highest ranks, at a moment, there's a trigger that could ignite it.
I agree. I remember thinking and what you were saying about those moments of being triggered, especially when you're damaged by war.
Yeah.
And I think, Chris, that's part of the answer about why we don't see it produced in a certain way. I think many of us, what's that famous quote in that movie, A Few Good Men? You can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth. It really is the truth. To think, what one goes through, whether you're a man, woman, or child, we really don't understand. But I believe that in the play, there are many instances where there are clues to let us know what's going on with Othello. He says, I have a pain in my forehead here. When he's asking about that handkerchief, he says, my mind misgives. What's going on with this handkerchief? And then there are times where I've spoken to people who have done this play, and regardless of their background, they're like, oh, she just told a white lie about the handkerchief. I was like, no, that tells me you don't really understand war.
Yeah.
You can go into any theater of war, like actual war now, and usually soldiers may have a locker or something like that. And in that locker or on their person, they have some sort of token.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, if somebody messed with that token, woe
It matters.
comes into that person. No one would mess with anyone's token. And I want someone to get that. And that's hard to get, right? But if you mess with that in the of someone, especially like a general,
Yeah.
who's had a life that he's chosen, at least from what we see, right? I think it's fair to say that he chose Christianity, right? It's clear that he's an other, but he is from a royal family himself.
Yeah.
This isn't a man who's apologizing for who he is. But yet he knows the space in which he occupies.
Yep.
I think he knows that these people value him based on a skill that he has, right? And but I also think that there's a real harder conversation to have about that psychic doppelganger that you were talking about, that I think Dyson speaks of, and of course Du Bois speaks of, where we put on another mask. We're a little bit different in front of the white folks than we are with the black folks, and I do want to say I'm looking at it through the context of black and white.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to put that out there. But there is something to be said about some of us who are Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
Skilled, talented, well-spoken, speaks the Queen's English, good-looking. We're going to choose him. And that person needs to make sure that they comport themselves in a way to be accepted by the ruling class, if you will. But we also got to remember that Jackie Robinson was used against Paul Robeson.
Yeah.
When Paul Robeson went before the Senate hearing, and they used Jackie. So there's so many things that we can learn from this, right? I think a current sort of thing, and it's different, but it's an interesting thing. Colin Kaepernick. It was crystal clear why he was doing what he was doing. And then no less than a couple years later, we have a hip hop artist who's pretty popular. Then allow the NFL to sort of launder themselves to come on board to do the Super Bowl presentations, things of that nature. And now there's even stories about how Barclays Center got set up at the expense of the working class folks.
Yeah.
You know, there's some real, you know, because look, what if I was in the position to be able to, be Jackie, right? Because I don't believe that Jackie thought that, oh, well, the Negro Leagues aren't as good, but there was something about how we buy into the idea of what the gold standard is.
Yeah.
And I would say back, at least in the early part of the 20th century, to make it plain, it was white. And so, what are the white man's ice colder or something like that? Mm-hmm. That's what my uncle used to tell me. Mm-hmm. So it's those things that I think we also have to think about.
Yeah.
About the choices that we make. And it's hard because, the material desires, I get it, I get it. And I just think that's also a conversation to be had.
And you're layering all these things, and to me, this creates the nuance of Othello. Mm-hmm. Like, this creates the nuance in the character, for then it allows a more nuanced interpretation of Desdemona as well, mm-hmm. right? And I think I would love to unpack like the idea of what it means to be this general, this other, and really leaning into all the aspects of like, there's a level of someone wanting to see someone feel shame and feel less than in his position, or feel grateful that he's in the position, although mm-hmm. he's an other. And what that does to someone, along with marital stress, along with just the stress of war and being a product of that. But how has that lended you to nuance other characters in the play too?
No, it's a great question. And I think one of the great privileges of working for CTH is we're very intentional about how we try and build these worlds that we create these stories in. And so, Ty and I put our heads together, and it was important for me, an added layer that I hope some people pick up on. Our Desdemona is a beautiful Puerto Rican actress. Mm-hmm. Amelia is a beautiful Puerto Rican actress, right? To me, there's almost a dual hurt in that, mm-hmm. right? I'm gonna keep it real. Growing up in Miami, right, we had a large Latin community around us. And the shame I felt when you talk to a little high school girlfriend and be like, well, I could never bring you home. Wow. My dad would, he would disown me.
And you speak Spanish.
Speak Spanish,
yeah.
Yeah. But it's the hurt also, mm-hmm. at least in my imagining of what this world is, that the text says, her dad loved me. Yeah. Often didn't invite me into his house. We broke bread, blah, blah, blah. But when I found out that an offer that they could actually get together, that was a deal breaker. Mm-hmm. I was like, this feels so familiar.
Yeah.
That no matter, he went to Harvard, he did this, he was it don't matter.
At the core.
Yeah, and I think, that's one of the things that always nags at me about this, because the tropes that we are still finding ourselves in. This cat gets up on the biggest stage of his sports career on the White House lawn, and the first thing he does is talk about somebody, a negative swipe at the classiest lady probably in the universe. And I say that to say, one of the tropes that have continued to haunt us as Black folks, they always want to compare the animalistic or reach for that, mm-hmm. or this. And Iago is one of the architects in our text. And the proximity to whiteness. I'm just going to keep it real.
Yeah.
That I think still invades our conversations, invades a lot of our mind space about what is different than that other person.
Yeah, with our psyche.
Yeah.
I can remember in high school. So I was pretty successful in high school. I was ranked top 10% in my class. I had an all-school letter. I was secretary of the German club. I can go on and on, all right? And let me preface this by saying, my high school since then has treated me well. I was a commencement speaker. I can keep going on. They honor me well. Yeah. But I'll never forget my senior year, March of my senior year. I am vice president of the class as well too. We had a substitute that day. And I don't know if y'all did the same thing in high school, but when the substitute teacher, you kind of acted up a little bit,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
So we were acting up a little bit. It was our English class. And so one of the things our school did is that if somebody won a scholarship somewhere or if they got accepted to a school, it was on the morning announcements. So the whole school heard. So I had a full ride to the University of Delaware. And in English class, there was a kid to my right. I'll leave him my name. I'm one of those cats that will name people, but I won't do it. I won't do it, right? And he was like, "Oh, Ty, everybody knows why you got your scholarship." And he pointed to the skin. Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Oh, dude, you sat bench on varsity soccer. You know, you're in the top 50% of our." I was like, "Bro, you don't even compare."
Yeah.
Right. So I'm defending myself in a way.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you what started to happen. One by one. 26 people in the class. They started saying, "Well, Ty, yeah, we know you do a lot of stuff and you're smart, but that's the only reason why you got the scholarship."
So it snowballed.
Oh, it snowballed. And guess what? I kid you not. There were two people who defended me. The theater people.
Of course.
And I will name her. Tina Falasco. She was right behind me. She was like, "Ty's done so much and you guys don't understand." And then Michael, he passed away, but they were the only two. And I had people in that class that were on the student council board with me.
Yeah.
I participated in all the school spirit stuff. So, we were doing the floats. They saw everything that I did.
Yeah.
And they betrayed me. No, Ty, that's the only reason why you got it. And that changed my relationships with so many people in high school. Like, I barely speak to anybody. I mean, I'll go back to some reunions and say hello and stuff like that. But I'm telling you, it hits you a certain way. And I'm a military brat. So most of my upbringing was military. My mother's a 22-year veteran of the United States Air Force. So since the age of 5, all the way till I was 25, I was a dependent in the military. Yeah. So that was my life. Yeah. So, the military is different from civilians. It's a real thing. And so, it was embedded in me that I earned everything that I got. You know what I mean? And I have to admit, I think that I fell into, probably unknowingly, into wanting to be validated by these folks.
I understand.
You know what I'm saying? And it's one of these things where I have 3 kids, 15, 17, and 19. And I have to admit, it's a struggle for me to try to share that experience because the truth is, I think they're just going to have to experience for themselves. Yeah. There's no amount of storytelling
Can't really
I can tell them
for that.
Yeah. But I think as I've grown older, I'm like, wow, I have to be able to get to a place where I know that I can assert myself. And I have to unplug from all the things I've been told is the gold standard and the imprimatur. And that's hard to do. Mm-hmm. It's hard to do.
Everything around us tells us to find that validation.
Yeah. I cannot think of a more appropriate play to do than Othello right now.
And Carl, like what you're talking about to me, the pain of lateral violence from communities next to us. I'm hoping, one of the things I love about audience interaction is the levels that people get. There are going to be people that may not understand that because that is not their lived experience and understanding what it means to be of the global majority and deal with lateral violence from communities of the global majority. And then there may be people where it really strikes. And can you talk a little bit about like what you're hoping audiences get on different levels?
Yeah, so I here again, the beauty is we've reimagined this Othello in a very particular way that I haven't seen done before. So I'm really
yes, sir.
I'm really excited by that, to really investigate it with fresh ideas and hopefully a fresh take on it.
Yeah.
But and here again, I think the beauty of the art is that it's going to hit who it hits in a certain way.
For sure.
And there will be some audience members that really something resonates in a different way than maybe I even thought of. And that's the beauty of it, right? But I would be remiss if I didn't say that went into baking how this Othello was made. I just want to take a moment. When Ty reminisces about that story about high school, do you see how the scars are still there?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I felt that.
Yeah. I'm good and grown, but Ty took me back to what felt like 2 weeks ago in
Yeah.
high school.
Yeah.
It's so vivid. It's so remembered.
Core moments of hurt.
Exactly.
These-
So I think, I won't say it's exclusive to brothers, but I think brothers have these scars that are so deep
Yeah.
and way beyond physical.
Yeah.
Right? Because the physical can heal. Time, okay. But when it's those moments that are forged in our youth, man, those stay with you forever.
Yeah.
And what's beautiful is we're able to have a conversation about how we're moving either through them and currently have moved through them or like will move through them.
Yeah.
And I think it's profound because so many of us don't, especially so many of us don't feel that permission to give ourselves the time, space, and grace to move through these emotions and like have a conversation where you're understanding I did the best I could with the tools I had.
Right.
But now I'm not going to go back and judge myself because of what I thought validation was, but how do I reframe and rethink what reality is? And I think I'm hoping that even seeing the show or even seeing this conversation, anyone, but particularly men, really feel the urge to rethink what it is their framing is of validity, accomplishment. Because wow, when you decide not to shift it towards the lens of a dominant culture, how liberating it can be. But yeah, I have wounds from high school, different ways. I'm not a military brat. I'm a hippy dippy child of two artists, and my father is white, my mother was black, and here the two-ness in a different way resonates with me in ways where I see in this play, dealing with deep understandings of colorism, but also like again that lateral violence and how that hurts most from the people you feel like are supposed to have your back.
Amen.
And it's often because they're doing the best with the tools they know, but they don't know how harmful their tools are at the moment.
I also think what's important too is that part of those tools is having a deep and profound love of history.
Yes.
We have to be able to see different outside of what we've learned in high school and take time to read these books or heck, I have to admit, I'm pretty interested in having conversations and podcasts and things of that nature so we can understand that there were people, like my folks are from rural Mississippi.
Yeah.
I promise you, they went through harder things than I've gone through. But with that said, they did go through them. And we can learn, like, okay, I can give you a perfect example. So Brown versus Board of Education, 1955. Well, Mississippi, they had to desegregate with all deliberate speed, right? And what ended up happening is my auntie, Myrtle, they went to a healthy black school, healthy black middle class in Jackson, Mississippi, and they then had to go to the white schools. The black teachers didn't have anywhere to go. And all of a sudden you saw the middle class start to have some cracks.
Yeah.
Because now those teachers weren't working anymore. And so there has to be, I believe, a real deep and deliberate conversation about these moments in history, which we all are supposed to celebrate, right?
Yeah.
And I get it. I think, the idea of desegregation is great. I think that what ended up happening, though, is that integration took the place of the economic advancement of black folks. So when I look now, I'm like, okay, here I am. I'm one of the leaders of this theater company. I think I need to be intentional about trying to get black folks in positions of leadership. Whether it is our designers or people on stage. And look, it's crystal clear if anybody comes to see our shows, whether it's our board of directors, backstage, on stage, our audience, it's clearly a diverse audience.
Representative.
Right? Yeah, it's clearly representative. It looks like a subway car. So anybody on the extremes that are going to come after me on that, because I want to be intentionally black, come after me. But at the end of the day, I think considering all the stuff that's going on in the world right now, the basic reason why we chose this play is exactly a message to me and maybe other people in positions of leadership, or if they have black companies and so forth, to say, yeah, we need to be intentional about buying our material goods from black stores. Be intentional about giving, or not giving, they can earn, of course they'll earn their jobs and stuff like that. But it's it's no utopia. Don't get me wrong. I'm not expecting some utopia out of this. But yeah, I think that the message here is we don't necessarily have to say yes to Branch Rickey. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you know what? I'm going to stay here and I'm going to make sure that this thing right here, I may not see it get to the heights of, and I don't know if I would ever want it to get to the heights of some of the sort of flagship institutions here in New York City in terms of scope and real estate and size that way. But I do believe we can have the same scope and impact that those big institutions have. But, maybe we find a way to do it through our lens,
Yeah, I agree. And I think I was up at the park yesterday and seeing folks come through already asking, oh, when's the show running? Like, to see that it's a fixture of the community says something that is bigger than a review can do.
Amen.
And it's bigger than, when we talk about external validation, I think it's important for the people in Central Harlem and all of Harlem and really all of New York to realize if you live near Marcus Garvey Park, you don't have to travel very far for world-class art.
There you go.
And to me, that allows a sense of pride in saying we own this as well, right? This is like this became, when you're like on the vanguard of an artist, it gets really hot, and for community members to already be invested in watching the load-in happen, is like, come on, I just don't know where else you get that kind of experience and interaction.
And then even during the production, we make sure that we reach out to other cultural institutions to perform before the show. So we're not monopolizing the space or anything like that. I think we are doing a public good, and it's free. There are no barriers to access whatsoever, and I'm thrilled that the reason why we exist is because of the people of Harlem. Like you just said, I think I don't want to put this out there too hard, but there is something to be said if you're review proof. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and no matter what they say, and people still show up. We like that.
Yeah.
We like that.
But the room Carl creates makes sure people do show up because the show's awesome.
Without question. His aesthetic is second to none. It is primary. Everything, in my opinion, and yeah, he's my friend too, okay? You say, whatever bias I may have, but I will, without question, without hesitation, put him up against anyone on the globe in terms of directing a piece of play. Now, mind you, there are some plays, right? You know exactly where the bench is supposed to go.
Yeah.
You know exactly where the baseball is supposed to live and the bat and so on and so forth, where the porch is. But when you have to invent it from nothing,
A whole world.
give me Carl Cofield.
Oh man. Well, listen, brothers, I deeply appreciate it, but we're in this together, and I just, two things which y'all said resonated. I think of our theater in the best community theater sense, and I don't mean that in a pejorative.
I completely understand what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Whereas, I think the people of Harlem have a civic responsibility to come see our shows.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they come in there and they talk about it. And Ty has always been forthright about saying, we hope this theater moves people in profound ways, right? And so thinking about that in the context of Othello, two things. When you have brothers like C.Q. Brown, who was the top Joint Chief of Staff for the Air Force as a black man, to then be shown the door by somebody, and I'm gonna keep it real, who couldn't hold his jock strap. I think that echoes some of the things that the play talks about. That, I'm just gonna keep it real, Iago as a character is not the soldier, is not the husband that Othello is.
And not a genius.
No, not by any stretch.
I mean, and go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, and then to see the tactician in him come to isolate Othello and cut him off.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something about this, and I think it's the zeitgeist of a lot of brothers now, the importance of this type of conversation, this type of fellowship to check in with the mental health component. Yeah, brother, I know you run the theater, but how you doing? Yeah, let's just go out and talk about it. Man, you want to get on the bike today and go ride 50 miles? But that's important because we've all been titans in our own little spheres and siloed off, especially if you work in a corporate world, especially if you work in, I don't know, academia where you feel siloed and you don't really have anybody to talk to. and what negative effects that can have. And I think that is the manifestation to me about what's so interesting about Othello's journey.
Yep.
He is so othered. And even the people that he tries to, imbue with trust, he's alone.
Yep.
And it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller till ultimately he is in a place, in the sunken place that I think, Brother Jordan Peele talks about, that sunken place. You don't know which way is up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it feels like, well, what's so beautiful about it is then it's not just him going crazy. Because we've seen how quickly people will turn your back on you, and it's not crazy to think I have to watch my back because I can't trust someone that I thought I could, because their allegiance is more to something else than it is to me.
Right.
And it is literally just because of who I am, the color of my skin, that makes their allegiance so thin, so fickle.
Yeah.
And so to me, that humanizing of Othello, I'm excited about our version because of that.
Yep.
So
There is a very interesting take that I always come across when I see Othello, and it is the one in which I walk away from the play as if the play is called Iago.
yeah,
But I also happen to have, I guess, I empathize with folks when we say that we like to see ourselves up there. I can imagine certain directors of a melanin challenge directors, they want to see, themselves up there,
Yeah.
and they can't help. I mean, imagine you're talking about this play, 1603, something like that, over 400 years old. In early days, it was, if somebody was playing Othello, they most likely were someone who was white that blackened themselves. It wasn't until, just a little over a century where a person who was actually, black or a person of color actually played this role of Othello.
Yeah.
But imagine since then, the idea of Iago has been set as if he is some alpha,
Yeah.
And, and that's tough because I can imagine that somebody who wants to play that role sees themselves as alpha, sees themselves as brilliant, as erudite and able to maneuver and manipulate and almost a hero.
Yeah.
And I've listened to scholars, I've listened to folks who I think, whether it's John Barton, I mean, the legends in the world of Shakespeare, they talk about Shakespeare in a fundamentalist way, like some zealots of the Bible.
Yeah, as
you know
if
what
it's
I mean?
gravity.
Oh yeah. And so I always think it's tough for the person who's playing Iago to maybe think of themselves, if I were to use a contemporary person, more like Clive Davis or a Roy Cohn, that kind of a person.
Yeah.
Not the, I'm an alpha dude, and I understand the difficulty. I get that because who wouldn't want to be Achilles like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get it. Or Memnon, I should say, But that's an interesting way in which the show has been embedded, that Iago's the alpha in this. I've even seen a version where at the end of the play, Iago's wounded. He's being carried off. He shirks off the guys that are carrying off. He goes back over to the bed, looks at the people who are now passed away, Othello, Desdemona, and he salutes them. End of play. I'm like, you might as well just go ahead and call the play Iago.
Yeah.
You give it to him in the beginning and you give it to him in the end. And unfortunately, everyone approaches it that way.
Yeah.
And that's a tough thing to do. They look at Desdemona at almost every time I've seen it 10 times. 8 out of 10 times she comes out in white. We know what that symbolizes. And she's like apologizing that she has married the Moor. I'm like, no, this is a senator's daughter.
Yep.
She knows exactly who she is, and she knows exactly what the rules are.
Yep.
And she chooses him, So being able to put a different perspective on this. I hope that, when we post this on YouTube and so on and so forth, and people want to look up Othello, I hope they'll look at this and be like, wow, this counters almost every scholar that is out there, almost every person who speaks about this in a very scholarly way. And because they don't look at it through the perspective of war, almost never. They never look at it through the perspective of the person playing Othello.
Yeah.
Somebody who has, experienced all these things in war. Somebody who may be at a point in time done with war.
Yeah.
And he's fallen in love. And maybe, you know, when he talks about the fruits are to ensue, hey, maybe it's time to have a child, you know, or something like that. But anyway, those are the kinds of, I think, deeper examinations into the play that I think rarely ever happen.
And can I jump in?
Yeah,
Because I think with casting, you've assembled an ensemble that is that flexible, and when I've seen, hasn't been married to what they thought Othello was.
Yes.
And so what I've been really taken by is the willingness for the actors to step up into the vision that you're asking them to take on, rather than what they think Othello should be. So can you speak? I mean, the cast is phenomenal. So if you...
We have a fantastic company of actors. James Udall.
Oh man. Get ready.
Yeah, it's that easy, right?
That brother's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, and so to your point though, I think that speaks to two things. I think that speaks to the theater that Ty has clawed out, right? That people want to work and they trust that the work is going to be of such a level that they can come in and be playful and be flexible and have dexterity and not with a sort of fixed thing. Because I think sometimes the armor that an artist comes into the door with is like, I got to watch my back because I don't know which way I'm going to be protected. When they come to CTH, they know the work is going to be at the highest level. It's going to be intentional.
Yeah.
And it's going to be done with care. Not only care for what's on the stage, what's behind the scenes, for our community. Yeah. So it's a very, very intentional and not just transactional.
Amen.
Because we don't just ask the audience, pay your money, shut up, and get out. We're trying to build this together and be in conversation together. So that harkens back to what I'm talking about, community theater in the best sense.
Absolute best sense.
And I think it also goes to we're being very intentional. I know Spanish Harlem is right there.
Right there. Right to the east.
So what does that mean to have a Desdemona and Amelia be Latina?
Yeah.
Right?
Rodrigo.
And so, and Rodrigo.
Yeah.
And Brother Gilbert Cruz playing.
Right.
So what does that mean to say, hey, we see you?
Yeah.
We are crafting art in dialogue with you rather than monologue. We just telling you what you gonna like and da. So I think that is one of the main things that I'm so excited about, and that when we invite people to be a part of the company, they know.
I mean, I hope people really, I want to underscore what he just said. We know how Harlem has been set up almost as one side of the Fifth Avenue and the other side of Fifth Avenue. We're doing a play. It's a play that's bringing people together. And that's also an echo to the Harlem Renaissance. It was art. Art was the thing that people used to come together to talk about community maintenance. Thank you for listening to what we think is a really important conversation about this text. Please come check out Othello, July 5th through July 26th. At Marcus Garvey Park, Harlem. The show is 1 hour and 45 minutes, so make sure you manage yourselves because you're not going to want to leave your seat. The show begins at 8:30. On weekends, we have a number of vendors that will be in the park, and please go to our website at cthnyc.org for more information.
Please come out and see it. It's going to be an important conversation starter and a reframing of a classic. And just when you thought you knew Othello, I can't wait to invite you to our production to have a different vantage point to look at this text.